And welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover Podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King. I am joined today by our publisher, Ronnie Sanders, and a special guest on the show today, longtime head coach in the SEC and in the Big Ten. Ron Zook joins us on today's podcast. Ron, hope you're doing well. Hope you were able to enjoy this last football season a little bit, and hope you're enjoying the off season.
Well, I am. I did enjoy the football. It's different. Up until a few weeks ago, I thought I would be working at this point in time. I was in the XFL, and really was a great deal. And I knew when they had the merger, they weren't going to be the total. They weren't going to have 16 teams, but they kept telling us that we would have a team. We had a pretty good team last year. I was with the Seattle franchise, and so it was a pretty good deal, but it just didn't. They didn't. Once again, it comes down like everything else in sports. It comes down to money, and so we didn't make the Seattle franchise didn't make the cut. So I'm kind of out of a coaching job again. So, but that's the nature of the business, and kind of gives me a chance to go around and see my grandkids and spend a little more time. In fact, I'm usually not here this time of the year in Florida, and I asked my wife. I says, because we ski in the morning a lot, and we've had to ski a little bit later because it's a little chilly out. I said, is it always this cold? And she goes, well, this time of the year it is. So anyway, but it's all good. Everything's good.
That's good. Well, I appreciate you being on with us.
Well, right, like I told you, Ronnie, you text me at 2 a.m. and wake me up, and I'm up for the rest of the night. So
I'm usually up all night, so that's.
I figured that. I figured that's probably what your deal was.
He does the same thing to me. Don't take it personally.
I didn't take it personal. How are your kids doing?
They're good. They're good. We got 3.
I know you got a ranch also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the little one is. I'm sorry. The big one's just like me. She looks like Becky, and but I'll tell you a story. We took them to their first concert last year. It was Bon Jovi. In Nashville. And Alex said, then we took him to Alex went to her first Iron Bowl. I taking the other 2, but Alex went to her first Iron Bowl last year. And so we get after the game, and Auburn lost on basically the last play and
play of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, we get back the next day, and I'm like, so what do you guys think about the game? And Alex looks at me and she says, well, it was better than that stupid ass Bon Jovi concert you took me to.
Oh, well, at least you're raising them right.
That's right.
Well, that was a heck of a game. Like you say, it was the last play of the game. Holy smokes!
Yeah.
It's. In fact, I had texted a guy. I got a guy that lives on the lake here with me. That's a big Auburn. They go, I don't know how many games a year, but big Auburn fan. And I had texted him in the fourth quarter. Just hey, congratulations. That's a big win. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've heard from him since.
He's probably still throwing up.
Oh, yeah. But those are hey, you think about it. It was in our first or second year. They're playing. Auburn's playing Georgia. It's 14. It's 4th and 14. Last play of the game. Auburn's going to win. We're going to go to the SEC championship game, and they throw a Hail Mary. Boom! They score. Georgia goes to the SEC. We don't. So there's a lot of crazy things that have happened on that field.
No doubt. I remember you telling me about I was there. It was 93. You were the defensive coordinator, I guess, at Florida. And tell us a little bit about that.
Danny Warfel. We're up 10-0. And I've always said, I've been in some loud stadiums. I mean, Seattle, when playing out there in the NFC Championship game is probably the loudest stadium I've ever been in. But the Auburn Stadium, even though it only seats 85 or 90, whatever it is, it's just a great place to play a game. And I remember we went there when I was at Tennessee, I think in '84, when Bo Jackson was playing. But we're up 10-0. And I mean we're on the 5-yard line, and we're getting ready to go up 17-0. I mean we're kicking the crap out of them. And all of a sudden Danny throws no, it wouldn't have been Danny. It was I can't remember the guy's name. The quarterback. Anyway, he throws a pick, 95 yards. He goes back the other way. So now it's in that stadium went. I mean it was berserk. It was unbelievable, and we ended up getting beat. 35-32. We had turned the ball over 6 or 7 times, and it was the defense's fault that we got beat. But anyway, that's a memorable place to play, no question.
Well, you replaced. Talk a little bit about Alabama, and we walked into. For those that don't know, I was there with you for the 3 years you were the head coach at Florida, and we walked into a little bit of similar situation as DeBoer is walking into at Alabama. We replaced Spurrier, and it was. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I know from my perspective, it was tough.
Well, and that's why I said. I think you and I might even talked about this right after they announced the new head coach at Alabama. Because he had a great job. I mean, Washington's a great job, and they've obviously done a great job. And just why would you want to follow Nick? No matter how good a job he does, it's going to be hard to. And but anyway, it'll be tough for him to follow. When we go to Florida, and I had been at Florida for Spurs. 5 of his first 6 years, and then I had gone on to the NFL with Pittsburgh and Kansas City and New Orleans. And when I came back, I Coach was never a great recruiter. That was never his cup of tea, but I didn't realize the program where it was, and at the point in time when we got there. In fact, if you remember, our biggest recruit that year was probably Rex Grossman, talking Rex in the stand one more year.
No question.
And But we came in. It didn't matter what we did, how it was. I mean, we weren't Steve Spurrier. I wasn't the person that they wanted, and I knew that. But what are you going to do? Tell them no? I'll take it the next time. I mean, when you got an opportunity, you got to take it. And how about this one? Dr. Young was the interim president at Florida, and he had come from UCLA, and he was actually the president when Gene Bartow took over for John Wooden.
Wow.
And so he'd already, he'd kind of, John Wooden, he's won 10 national championships in a row. And then Gene Bartow comes in and takes over for him. And of course, if anybody ever goes back and looks, Gene Bartow, before he got fired at UCLA, had a better winning percentage than John Wooden. No one knows that. I mean, he actually has a better winning percentage at UCLA than John Wooden, but didn't matter. He wasn't John Wooden. He's going to get fired. So anyway, I can remember Dr. Young came over to my office the day after the press conference, and really, he was kind of preparing me, I guess, and I knew it was going to be bad, but it was. I said, well, what do I do? I mean, how do you handle that? He says, there's nothing you can do. He says, my only advice to you is be yourself. So we remember now, we hit it pretty hard. Now we went into a lot of schools. Mm-hmm. In fact, I want to say, and I may be off a little bit here, but in the 3 years we were there, if I wasn't in every school in the state of Florida, I was pretty close to being in every school in the state of Florida. But anyway, we hit it hard and did the best we could. And, we left a pretty good football team when we left. Like that, my first year at Illinois, we're playing Penn State. And I had become pretty good friends with Joe Paterno. And so I got to know him. And we're sitting out there before the game, how coaches kind of stand around and BS and talk a little bit. And I said, Coach Paterno, I said, I bet you're glad I got fired at Florida. And he kind of looked at me kind of funny. And I says, yeah, because those 5 freshmen that you're playing against us today, they were all coming to Florida. So, and they were. And but when they made the decision to let us go, then they ended up going to Penn State. But we left a pretty good group of players there, and I was happy for them. We said that one of our goals was to win a national championship, and we weren't able to be there with them, but they did, and that's kind of what it's all about.
And we had some pretty good kids on that team.
Yeah, we did. We did. We in fact, that was the one thing everybody that I knew in coaching, anybody that told me I was crazy to coach the rest of the year. And the thing I said, well, we told these guys when we recruited them that we were going to be there for them no matter what. If it was tough times, and we were going to be there for them. And so how could I, just because I got fired, how could I tell them that I wasn't going to continue to? I mean, that wouldn't be, that's not what they've been preaching for 3 years. So we stuck it out and finished up strong, and it was obviously a great win in Florida State, and something that Spurrier had never done in Tallahassee, and it was good, but it was it was a tough go there for 3 years.
Well, I remember Coach Godfrey trying to get me to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
He was one of them. He was, I was with Coach Godfrey longer than anybody. And he said, Ron, you don't want to do this. You just don't want to do it. Because we had 4 games left. And I said, well, the same thing. I said, well, Coach, how can I just not coach, tell these guys, I mean, once again, because we always talked about tough times, all of us, I mean, and everybody, it was a tough job. If you remember now, Ronnie, we were getting beat up pretty good. And I can remember, for some reason, Florida has always had an issue with the Mississippi teams.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State. And I can remember we got beat by Ole Miss, and it was bad.
Bad.
And we didn't get beat bad, but I mean, the temperature outside was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember on the way home, my wife saying, we're having a party. Everybody's got to be at the house. There's no exceptions. Kids, everybody, you're there. And you tell them if they don't want to come, then they're fired. I kind of looked at Denise and said, wait a minute now. But I can remember, that you circle the wagons and you kind of got everybody together. But that's one of those jobs that are like that. You gotta circle the wagons, but it is. I still think it's the best job in college football, or at least one of them. I mean, it's just. I think I told you if we'd had some of the situations that they're going on right now, they'd have burned our house down.
No doubt. I mean, I thought they were going to anyway.
Well, I think the expectation levels changed a little bit, and they need to figure out all the coaches can't be bad. I mean, maybe it's something else, and so anyway.
Well, it's all cyclical too, I mean, it's about time for Florida to cycle back up, I guess. I mean, it's
well, if you look at, and I don't know, Billy, but if you look at the team he had last year, and I don't follow very close, but it looked like the best players on the team were his players,
mm-hmm.
And what people don't understand is you just can't turn it over. I can remember our first year at Florida, Coach Bowden saying that you're going to lose a game for every freshman you start. And I can remember telling our staff, man, that ain't good for us. I don't remember how many freshmen we were starting, but we were starting a bunch of them. And I said, man, this ain't good for us. But it's, your players are going to be better as seniors or juniors than they are as freshmen and sophomores. And you just got to coach them up. And, there's a lot of things you can't control, and you got to control the things that you can and get everybody playing hard and on the same page. Nowadays, with what's going on, how do you get them all playing for the same thing? How do you get them all? How does God bless those guys? Because I mean, how do you get everybody on the team pushing for the same thing now? Because now it's all about money. It's all about I want to get the most money. I want to get more than him. I want to get just unbelievable.
Well, I thought that was one thing you did a really good job of, is holding everybody together. Sometimes that's a lot of times that's hard to do, but especially with the different personalities on that staff and the different players, and we didn't recruit all of them. Sprayer had some of them, and we recruited some of them, and it was I mean, the fact that everybody kind of came together those last 4 games was pretty impressive.
It was. If you remember, though, I can remember our first recruiting meeting. I just got in there. I got in there, I think maybe a Wednesday or Thursday was the press conference, and we had a recruiting meeting or recruiting weekend. And we'd kind of tried to do everything as fast as we could, and we had guys coming in, and the one thing that me or you or somebody forgot that had name tags for the kids that were visiting.
Miss Betty.
Yeah. Anyway, so I said we didn't know the players from the recruits. I remember looking at everybody and says, "Hey, look, just recruit them all because we need them all. The players, recruit everybody, treat them all the same." And but that was kind of the way the whole 3 years was. It was just a constant. But we had, like you said, we had good kids. I can remember Big Mo. I can remember him walking through the gate, and I could tell if he was had a bad day or not. I mean, you just knew, you just that you got to spend a lot of time with them. And like I said, it's a lot harder now than I'm sure now.
Well, if you remember Becky, my wife, she she was a sports nutritionist there with Michelle.
Yeah.
And she would, when we started dating, I basically put her in charge of Mo. And so Mo would come over there and he wanted to eat, I think they got 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, whatever it was. And he wanted to eat 6 or 7. And he ran out of meals, and he threatened to whip the lady's ass at the front of the dining hall. And, Becky had to pull him over to the side and calm him down and walk him out. And
Mo had a trick. He was, and really we had, like you said, they were not they were good though. I've often wondered, and it's amazing. I get a lot of texts nowadays. These guys are all 30, 40, 50 years old, and I'll get texts from them thanking me. And it was a good time. It was a hard time at times, but it was a good time, and it's good to watch. They're all Gators. They're all love the Gators, and don't see a lot of them, which I like. I don't see a lot of them complaining about what's going on. A lot of these places, and it's because I think they went through some tough times and they understand what how hard it is to be where you want to be. I think everybody wants to be the. It's funny. Remember, we used to talk about this. I was there for the first SEC championship with Florida, with Spurrier, and 10 years later, that was 1991. They won the first SEC championship, and 10 years later, they thought they invented football.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's kind of what makes makes it one of the best jobs. In fact, I said to Ada, I stopped there last week, and I said, well, where's your office at? Where are you at? He says, over by the parking garage. I said, you mean our indoor facility? Remember, we had to use the indoor facility. It'd start raining, come up, we'd be in the indoor or the parking garage that was our indoor facility.
We had to put Bob and Trout up on top of the parking deck to keep people from filming practice.
Yeah, that's right. So,
how do you think DeBoer will adjust to the culture down there? I think that's one thing. I don't have any doubt he's a good coach. I think he's done a good job. Having grown up here, though, I've been watching this for a long time, and I've seen Bill Curry get bricks thrown through his window, and I've seen Dennis Franchione the last 2 years and say, hell with this, I've had enough, and Mike Price last 5 months. Nick came in and kind of changed the culture. And I remember some of the media guys around here asking me, because I'd worked with Nick at LSU, and they said, well, what do you think? I said, well, things are about to change. But 16 straight years of, with 10 straight wins and top 5 recruiting classes, a lot of championships. How does that play?
Obviously, the bar is set extremely high, and I don't do Boy. I don't know him. I just know he's done a great job. But this will be a different animal for him. I think, first of all, just being in the Southeastern Conference, the intensity and it's. And the one thing about it, it's 365 days a year. It's not just the football season. It's 365 days a year. It's 7 days a week, and there's no way. People resist change, and that's just human nature. They resist change. So he's not going to do things like Nick did. And if you remember now, Nick's first year, I think he only won 7 games, didn't they? I can't remember.
Lost to ULM.
I'm sorry?
Lost to Monroe. And then our first year at LSU, we lost to UAB. And it's not UAB now. It was, 2-win UAB. They were awful.
I remember his first year when you guys were at LSU and I was with the New Orleans Saints, and I can remember reading the paper, and they were talking about Nick. I told my wife then, I said, "Dang, these people are crazy." It was pretty, but that's going to be, I'm sure, a different way of life for him and his family. Yeah, you feel bad for the families. It's the families. The coaches, you're kind of all bunkered down and you're all in the offices, and you don't hear it, you don't see it. I can remember all I had on the radio station one day. It was a Christian radio station, if you remember, playing. And I remember walking in there one day and saying, "Oh, let's all say a prayer for Coach Zook." And I called Denise. I said, "Man, it must be getting bad out there." Christian radio stations. But so it's going to obviously be a change for him. And as I said, he can't. And no matter what happens, I mean, there was grumblings in the first of the year when Alabama was struggling a little bit, and here's a guy that, it's probably done more than probably anybody in the history of college football, and they're grumbling. So, it will be a change in it. I think all you have to do is look what happens with Auburn. I mean, the guy that they had in there, I mean, he was a good football coach also. I don't know him, but I mean, he didn't come in there and forget football. But I think the culture that he came from, and it's just a different way of life in the Southeastern Conference, and particularly at schools like Auburn and Alabama, where the winning tradition Georgia much greater than what Florida. Florida's is short lived compared to Auburn and Alabama's and their winning traditions, and so it'll be a different way of life for them, I'm sure. And I really think it's harder now because of the NIL and the portal. I mean, how do you keep a team? How do you maintain a team? I think in the NFL, a team normally 30%, 20 to 30% of your team is going to change every year. Well, I mean, it could be more than that in college now. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the starting quarterback for Ohio State leaves, and goes to Syracuse. I mean, you'd never hear that, a few years ago, and he's the starting quarterback. And that's a pretty good job. And now, why did he leave? Well, I mean, did he not want to compete? Did he have a chance to make more? I mean, I don't know, make more money. There's guys in college now, college football, making more than the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl this year for the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they're making more than he is. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I'm just saying it's just a different picture in college football. And I think it's going to be harder to maintain the excellence that Nick has developed there. And it's going to be hard. It'll be hard for him. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying he won't do it, but it'll be hard.
Talk a little bit. I mean, having worked in Big Ten and SEC, I was up at Ohio State, went to a game up there last year. Been to a couple other places, but I mean, I haven't worked in the Big Ten. But talk a little bit about the culture difference working in the SEC, working in the Big Ten. I mean, you've been at Ohio State, obviously been around the SEC. What are the differences?
Well, I think I remember my first Big Ten coaches meeting. This would have been 2000, I guess, 4 or 5. And we're sitting in there and all the coaches are in there. And if you remember, that was when the SEC, had the championship game the first weekend in December. And, the thing that all these, Barry Alvarez, of course, Paterno, and all these guys had been in the Big Ten for a while. Even Kirk Ferentz, and they wanted to have, Woody's big deal at Ohio State back in the day was they wanted football to be done by Thanksgiving and they get on to recruiting. And if you remember, that was when the SEC was so far above in terms of publicity and so forth than the Big Ten. And I said, coaches, if we want to have the same type of coverage and the same opportunities, because it was a popularity contest for who was first, second, third, or fourth, just like it is now, but it wasn't a playoff. But it was still. I said we've got to play in December, because if you're not playing it, if you're not playing in December, you're out of sight, out of mind. And they all kind of. And I was the new kid on the block, and they, that's not what we do in the Big Ten. We want to be done by that. Woody. That's not what Woody would have done. I kind of said. I said, let me tell you something. Woody's dead. And they all kind of looked at me and says, I'm just saying, if you want the Big Ten Conference to come alongside and be a premier conference that people talk about across this country, then we're going to have to do some of the things that the Southeastern Conference is doing. And I think they have now. I think the Big Ten is and obviously with the addition of the teams and so forth, I don't necessarily like that, but with the addition of the teams from the West Coast and so forth, I think now they've taken some notes from the Southeastern Conference and how they've done it, and so I think right now it's probably very comparable.
Ron, you talked about that first transition year at Florida. Something Hugh Freeze talked about so much in his first year at Auburn was the delegation of, okay, do I spend all my time on recruiting to try to build up the roster talent? But at the same time, like you said, there's those fan expectations to get better on the field. I guess how difficult is that when you're taking over a job, or when you took over at Illinois as well, of kind of, really just delegating your time, because they did do a good job of recruiting, but obviously now they need to get better on the field. I guess how challenging is that in a year one and then transitioning to a year two as well?
Well, it's not impossible, but there's no time. I mean, you have all you do and that's why I said before, colleges are going to have a personnel department, and because there's just not enough time. There's not enough time, hours in a day. One of the things that made Nick Saban the best that there is because Nick, at least from what people have told me and being with Loxley, who was on his offensive coordinator and so forth, is Nick watched tape 24/7, 365 days a year.
Yep.
And he knew, and you have to do that. Well, a lot of people don't want to. I remember Nick's first job at Toledo, Christmas morning, 9:00 Christmas morning. Nick Saban called me about a coach. He wanted to know about a coach and what I knew about it. I'm thinking to myself, this is Christmas morning. And that, man, that's a swear to God truth. I mean, but he was calling to ask me about a guy that he knew I knew, and this at 9:00 Christmas morning, but that's a compliment, because that's the kind of person Nick. That's why he's successful. It didn't just happen. I mean, he's a great evaluator he was a great evaluator of talent, but he also. I mean, he worked it. He did it, and he didn't ask. He didn't ask people to do things that he didn't do himself. And but that and you also, your Auburn coach now has been in the SEC, so it's not completely new for him. He kind of knows the lay of the land, and kind of knows what's going to have to be done. And I mean, he's still now. I mean, he's going to have to delegate. He's going to have to have. I mean, I'm sure they've hired a great staff, and because the guys are going to have to coach, you're going to have to have people that What about going to class? Maybe going to class is not that important anymore. It used to be a big deal. They had to go to class. Now. I guess you go to school to learn how to make money, and they just say, "Well, heck, I'm making money. Why do I?" I don't know how they handle that, but I mean, all those things all the problems, not problems, but all the things that you got to handle and deal with in the personnel, then evaluating the personnel, then recruiting. Then I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. You can only talk to so many recruits in a day, and so he's going to have to rely on some people, particularly in terms of evaluation of talent. And now you got new talent. Now you got the portal talent. I mean, when you start looking at all the things that have to happen, it's just and that's why these programs have so many people on the staff now. I mean, you have to, because there's just no way you can do it all with a 10-man staff. There's not enough hours in a day and to do everything.
Talk a little bit about we had some staff turnover first year. JT moved on and Jerry Odom, but how important is it? And I know it's important, but from a head coach's standpoint, hiring people that and can trust versus not hiring your buddies. What's the balance there?
Well, it's critical that you don't. And Woody. I mean, I love Woody. If I got a head job tomorrow, I'd probably hire Woody again. But I've hired him and fired him twice, and it's not because he's not a great football coach. He is a great football coach. It's just the little things that have to happen, and that's where you don't know. You kind of coaches get tested. You've all been around those guys that interview. I mean, they give them a box of chalk and they turn it to dust. But when times get tough, when when the media is all over you, you're tired, things aren't going the right way, and how do you handle that? And I think that's what's hard to know about a coach that you don't know, hiring a coach that you don't know. I mean, he may be the best thing since, when you talk to him, and like I said, he'll take a box of chalk and turn it to dust. Well, but how is he when he's got, 30 seconds or 25 seconds or 40 seconds, to get the play out, or what you're going to do you look in the NFL, how many critical situations are screwed up the last 2 minutes of the half or the last 2 minutes of the game. And just go back to the Philadelphia game, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, those particular situations on the fourth down, I mean, I know that's what got them there by going forward on fourth down, and that's what the logistics say, the analytics say, and you go for it. But that's a different situation. That game it's so hard to get to the Super Bowl. Don't let one play. I mean, that's a gut. Now you got to, I think there were a lot of people when they made those calls. I don't mean to jump around here, but when he made those calls, like, what are you doing? And live to fight another day. So, but to answer your question, I think you got to hire guys that are good football coaches, that are good people, that are willing to. A lot of coaches they want to be buddies with their players, and sometimes football's a hard game, and sometimes you got to push people to do things that they don't want to do, and that's where another thing where I think I never worked for Nick, but I think he, you hear all the stories that he was great at is making people do things that they didn't want to do, and Johnny made
you uncomfortable. He made you uncomfortable. At least he made you uncomfortable during the week, and that way he put you under so much pressure. The way I always looked at it is he put you under so much pressure during the week and the rest of the year that when it got to Saturday, I mean,
it didn't. And Johnny Majors was like that. I worked for Johnny at Tennessee, and I can remember Johnny Majors was the best game coach, and one of the best that I ever been around, because he was a pain in the tail sometimes, not sometimes, all the time in practice. But during the game, he said, Ron, if you're yelling during the game, you didn't do enough yelling during the week. He was always good during the game, and never, which I always admired, because it takes an awful lot to keep your poise and not go crazy. It takes a lot more energy to do that than to let it out. But
I remember you always telling us where you tell Fedora would lose it, especially that first year. But you would. But Coach Godfrey used to tell me stories. He said he had to move you on the sideline because you almost fell out the press box.
Well, but I was better, and I think coaches, I wanted to go in the press box this last year as a defensive coordinator in the XFL, but Jim Haslett, the head coach, he wanted me on the sideline because you do get a better feel of your players. You can't see anything, so you got to rely on the guys upstairs to be, what you're looking for, and you got to have confidence that they know what they're looking at, and they're able to. And being a good game coach is hard. I mean, you have to concentrate. You can't watch the ball. You got to watch. Everybody has certain things. We used to talk about during when the ball snapped. What are you looking at? These are the things you have to look at. Don't look where the ball is going. Don't look. I mean, there were a lot of passes completed that I never saw completed because I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at something else.
Well, you were always good. You used to say, the players would do what we do, and they did. And so during the game, you were always pretty good. I had to pull you off the field a couple of times, but for the most part, you were pretty good. But we all had a job. My job was to make sure that they weren't getting a punt blocked. Make sure that we're getting a snap off, and make sure that.
Well, there's so many things that you got to winning a game is hard. In the NFL, it's really hard. But college has gotten to that point where it's hard to win a game, and usually they come down, particularly in big games. They come down to, you've always heard this, but 3 or 4 or 5 plays max, and in the case of those championship games, 2 plays, and you just don't want to. I learned early in coaching that the last 2 minutes of the half or the last 2 minutes of the game get more coaches fired than anything else, because that's when the boosters, if it's at the end of the half, they got that 20 minutes or 15, or in the NFL 12 minutes to talk about it, and if it happens in the first or second quarter, then during the quarter they they might go back and think about it, but they don't have time to go over it, and then at the end of the game, of course, and those are some critical situations that you see it every year. Like I said, you see it in the NFL where decisions are made, or clock management's so critical. Because a lot of times people watching it, particularly on TV, they don't see the same things that coach on the sideline. There may be things that, well, why didn't he do this or why didn't he do that? Why, we don't have all the information when you're watching the game. So, but during a game, you gotta be good.
Who do you have this weekend?
Oh gosh, I think it'll be a heck of a football game. I really do. I know a couple of the coaches in the Kansas City staff. I usually vote for or root for guys I know. I don't really root for teams, but I think it'll be a good game. I think obviously Kansas City quarterbacks is unbelievable. I mean, some of the things he does, it's hard to defend. But you like to see the quarterback of the 49ers. He's kind of cool watching him and how he handles the situation, and he's on the big stage like he is. And so, but anyway, it's all good. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun game.
Should be. Nathan?
Ron, are you a big Taylor Swift guy?
I'm not really. I don't have anything against it. I think it's kind of cool what she's done. How my daughters have kind of informed me that that she is a big deal, and I think the way she's been able to take over the NFL like she has, I wouldn't want to be in the limelight like that if I was the tight end. He's got enough things to think about. I always wonder, what do you think Andy's thinking about that? I mean, he's trying to keep everybody on the same page, and these are grown men. I know all that, and they all have a job to do, and they're supposed to be able to handle that stuff. And boy, I mean, there's a lot of things going on that outside of the game. As a football coach, you want your players so dialed into the game. In fact, I think I saw something where the quarterback mentioned that he was going to have a vacation or a big if all the players stayed out of the parties and all that stuff during this week out there, that he'd throw a big party or something. I didn't read the article, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean that game was just so hard to get to, and it's so hard to win. It's incredible.
That was
Andy Reid's setting up his next State Farm commercial. That's what he's worried about.
I doubt that. I bet you Andy. I bet he just kind of walks in and they tell him what to say and he says it and gets up and claps.
Yeah.
So, no, he's a ball coach. What do you hear being in Alabama? What do you hear with the new staff, new group going on? I haven't read a whole lot of, like I said, other than I think I saw something last night or the day yesterday that they were being accused of tampering, which I'm sure everybody's tampering. But what?
I think at Alabama, the kids, a bunch of those kids hit the portal when Coach Saban retired, and some of the fans here were somewhat panicked, but they finished decent, and I think they finished second overall in the recruiting rankings yesterday after signing day. So it's calmed down a little bit, but we'll see. I mean, I think that it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I mean, there was a lot of turnover on Auburn staff. I think there's probably more staff cohesion. I think Freeze has more guys that he's comfortable with, that he knows. Hired some guys last year that I think that he didn't know real well, and it didn't work great. But he's got more guys now around that he knows and trusts, and we'll see how that goes. But a little bit like I think first year you hired JT, and I think you're probably more comfortable with Bill Miller and Charlie than you were with JT.
Well, and JT was good. He just it was a different philosophy, and he and I've hired a couple coaches like that. I learned my lessons, but when you have your questions and you talk about scheme and you talk about system, and they answered the questions the way I wanted to hear them instead of I probably didn't watch enough tape before of what we're talking about. But JT did a good job. He did a good job. He really did. And then, of course, I think when you get better players, the big thing about coaching too, I think, is you got to do what your players can do. And the best coaches I've been around have been able to put their players in positions to be successful. What might be good with some player may not be good with another player. I mean, it just depends on the player. And it's your job as a coach is to get them playing, to do the things that they can do. And that's why you want your system. To me, when you talk about a multiple system, you want a system that that that, that doesn't have to be done exactly the same. Multiple to me means I can change up some things to let the players be successful with what they have, because not every player is the same. Some players are reactors, some players aren't reactors. Some players have that flat back hat speed coming off the ball and all the things that you're looking for. Well, some don't. You have to kind of have them come off the ball. So, that's to me when you talk about multiple system, or that's what I'm talking about. You can you can put the players in there and utilize what they do best.
Well, that's something Freeze mentioned too. Was I forget his quote on it, but he said that he's not sure he's ever gotten every hire right on a first year staff, because when you're making that transition, like we talked about earlier, you're so focused on recruiting.
But
So I think he is. I mean, maybe banking on it is the right word, but like Ronnie said, there's a lot. It's a lot of guys he's worked with at Ole Miss. I think they're kind of hoping that there's going to be a lot more cohesion and familiarity, and they need to get better on the field by at least a couple wins this year, and they're hoping that's how they're going to do it.
And I don't know this to be a fact, but I think sometimes, particularly with the younger coaches now, this is kind of a off the cuff comment, but whoever I work for, whether I believe, I was going to do it their way, and I learned that with Johnny Majors. I mean, when I realized that, hey, I was going to do it his way, and it just made life a lot easier. Some coaches just are bullheaded, and there's a lot of ways of doing things. If there was one way of doing things, everybody would be doing the same thing, and because it's all about winning. And sometimes these younger guys, Hugh has a way he wants things done, whether it's right, wrong, it's his way, and he's been successful. So everybody needs to jump on board, and the closer that, to me, that the faster you can get everybody doing that and believing, going the same way. Remember what I said: people resist change. People don't like change, and sometimes these coaches are, they're a little bit more. They're more concerned about what they know than what the head coach wants and what they can get their players to know.
How important is staff cohesion?
Well, I think it's important. I don't think you have it as much in the NFL as you did in college, but that was always important to me, just to have we had people at the house all the time, the coaches at the house all the time. I just think, it just, when everybody's on the same page, when everybody's, you see in a different light. They don't always see in the same light. I think in the NFL, you don't have that. That's one of the things I probably more than anything missed. You're close to a couple guys, 2-3 guys, but the overall parties that you used to have, you don't have that as much in the NFL. You don't meet as much in your staff meetings. You don't have near the number of staff meetings that you would have in college. Usually in the NFL, you meet when you have to meet. And we're in college, at least the colleges that myself and people I work for, we met usually every day, just to get on the same page and make sure everybody was on the same page.
We met every day, but you didn't meet as much as some guys I work for. We met every day, but we didn't meet 3 times a day. And when we met, it was 30 minutes or whatever, and then we kind of go on. I mean, some guys wanted to go in there and meet and meet to when you decide when you're going to meet again. And my attention span's about like yours, so it worked out pretty good.
I don't want to meet. I want to. If you got something, you got to get everybody on the same page, and you sit in there and BS, and you got the thing about some coaches think if they're in the office 16 hours a day that they're working hard, but I think you're in that office until you're done, and then you go home. And if you can get 16 hours worth of work done in 12 hours, then why wouldn't you do that and go home? I mean, why, but some guys don't want to go home. So,
we work plenty. I mean, I usually roll in about, I stayed up all night. So I'd roll in right at 8 o'clock, and of course about midnight before I got out of there. But
unfortunately, that's the kind of the nature of the beast. That's the profession. It's the way we grew up. And like I said, now I can't imagine because it's multiplied. In fact, one of the last recruiting calls I made, it was about 10:30 at night. It was the middle of February. This has been about 2 years ago, maybe 3, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm here 15 hours. It's the off season. I said, somehow, and this kid, I call him and I'm talking, and he says, well, coach, what kind of deal can I get? And I says, well, what do you mean? I said, academics, blah, blah, people, blah, blah, all the things. He said, no, coach. So-and-so is offering me this. And that's when I went home. I told Denise, I said, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's this college stuff anymore. It's all about money. I mean, how do you compete with that? I mean, whatever happened to playing the game because you love to play the game, and that's not what the game taught me. But that's the way it is now. And I think coaches will adapt, and it'll still be the great game that it is. But there'll be some, there's going to be some different ways of doing things.
Well, I still think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the majority of kids, not all, I mean, obviously some of them are going to pick, who offers them the most money. But I think the majority of kids come on campus and they like the school, they like the coaches, they like the environment, and everything being equal, they go where they want to go. Obviously not everybody's that way, but
well, I hope you're right. I'm not sure you are, but I hope you're right. because it looks to me like it's like I said, people a couple of years ago, it was like you wanted to have the best facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Maryland's facilities, I mean, they're as nice as anybody place I've ever been. Oh my goodness. But it's about, everybody's about money. It's about how much money you make and how much, I mean, you saw where the quarterback, I saw that yesterday, I think too, the quarterback from Georgia, bought a $300,000 car.
Lamborghini, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fine. I have no issues with that, but it's a little different lifestyle. I mean, it's just, let me ask you a question. Now he's going to play another year at Georgia, correct? He has another year, I think, right?
Mm.
All right. Well, what if, say, he doesn't make it to the NFL? All right. Now he's for a couple of years now, and he may or may not. For a couple of years now, he's lived that kind of a lifestyle. Well, once he's done, I mean, there's not a lot of jobs out there where you make $1 million a year. I mean, it just isn't.
I think that's the other part of what's going on in college football. I mean, if these kids are going to make that much money, then a lot of these kids come from nothing, as you know. So how do we, as a staff, how do you help those kids? How do you help them manage their futures? Because they may make enough in their 3 years at that school if they manage their money, they don't have to work a whole lot.
But that's exactly what you said. If you remember 12 or 15 years ago, the NFL was getting lambasted because all these, the average, I think the average NFL career was 4 years or a little over 4.5, whatever. And so they were 30 years old, 32 years old, and they were broke. But what happens is they're used to living that lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, when the money stops coming in, they don't, so they were getting on the NFL. Well, you got to teach these guys how to manage their money, and you got to teach them how to invest their money and all these things. And they were blaming the NFL for all the things that were going wrong for these guys being broke and being in bankrupt. And now we're doing it with 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds. I mean, because they're not. It's still going to be the same percentage or the same number of kids go to the NFL. It's not because they're making a lot of money in college, all of a sudden they're going to go to the NFL. It's still going to be, there are going to be a lot of guys making a lot of money that's never going to get to the NFL.
Well, Tim Tebow would have made a lot of money at Florida.
Sure.
It probably made more money at Florida than he made in the NFL.
Probably, yeah.
But that wouldn't have made him a great NFL quarterback.
No, but then that's what I'm saying. It's not going to, people are buying wins and rightfully so. And I mean, because it's about winning. That's the nature of the game and what it's all about. But to me, I think down the road, there's going to be some issues with guys being broke, guys not having any money, guys, not all of them, but there'll be a high percentage of them that they're out of money. They're not making money. They're living a $500,000 or $600,000 or $800,000 lifestyle, and they're making $100,000. Well, somehow that's not going to work. So
can you tell my wife that?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell my wife that?
Yeah, somebody tell my wife that too. So my wife is actually in Birmingham right now.
Is she really?
She's seeing her sister, so she's in your state right now.
I'll text her here in about a month. We had the same birthday, so
That's right. We're going to be in. I just made plan. We're going to be in LA. My daughter's Gonna be out there for her birthday. That's her birthday present. She wants to go see the granddaughters.
Good deal.
So,
Well, we
anyway,
appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, thank you,
anytime.
Ron.
I appreciate it, and you guys keep doing what you're doing.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, see you. Thank you. Bye bye.